What is up, everybody? It is I, the saltiest gaijin, joined, as always, by my very good friend Drabynoops, to bring you a special Tuesday night edition of the Unnamed MTG Podcast Voltron. Uh, where we're going to be talking about a topic we alluded to in the last budget battle, and then we were both not feeling the greatest on Sunday, so we pushed it off. But we're going to be talking mechanics and games rules versus flavor. So things like changes to the rules, which there have been many in Magic. It's a very old game. 30 years this year. And some of those changes, some more extensive than others, some more gradual than others, but definitely had not only an impact on the game's quality of life, but also the perception of like the story the game is telling in the game itself, not as a lore perspective. So very excited to be talking about that. So Drabynoops, we're gonna dive right into it here because we're gonna keep this on a tight ship.
Okay.
But so we're gonna start with probably. Well, we'll start with this. We'll start with this one. I think this will be a short but fun topic. A big rules change that confused a lot of people, and I still see judge calls happening to this day about it, are +1/+1 counters canceling out -1/-1 counters, because at once upon a time we had shit like +2/+1 counters. Magic was a different game at one point where we did not use uniform counters. We didn't standardize a lot of counters that we use. And nowadays, whether that's time counters, experience, loyalty, but these are specifically buff and debuff counters. +1/+1 and -1/-1. So the change was that they could exist independently, which was understandable because we had a lot of different unique counters, right? Like a good example is there's I think one exact card, I can't remember its name, that gives a +2/+1 counter. And so when we have existence of stuff like that, it makes sense that counters exist independently from one another. At least I'll say that, at least on a surface level. But why don't you tell me? Well, I should clarify. Now they don't exist independently, they cancel each other out. Of course, as the overall topic states. Why don't you tell me, from your perspective, how do you feel about, say, them existing independently from a player standpoint, and then just from like a narrative standpoint?
Sure. This was actually one of the changes that happened around the time I first got into Magic. It was a little bit in high school, came back for a little, like 1 or 2 sets, dropped out again, and then I came back, returned to Ravnica. But it was Scars of Mirrodin. And this is around the time that they made the change, because they were introducing the Phyrexians, Infect, and such like that. And they wanted... And +1/+1 counters had just been in Zendikar. So they didn't want the two mechanics to clash. Like, they didn't want, I was like, oh man, because my opponent has these -1/-1 effects, my +1/+1 counter strategy doesn't work. And then also it had a narrative sense that because the infection was causing the -1/-1 counters, the infection doesn't just go away. So it helps. The idea, at least from the way I understood it, was to make sure people could still play the strategies and archetypes that they wanted to play without causing that kind of conflict. But ultimately, they changed it back because it ended up being just overwhelming amount of information.
I think that would be a perfect description of it, is that it was an overwhelming amount of information. My as a player, having to keep track of 2 different kinds of counters, and typically as a player I have 1 set of dice that I bring, and I don't have various colored dice to bring. So from like a game piece standpoint, it gets difficult.
Yep.
Because puts the burden of me, the player, to have different kinds of dice to represent different things, or if I am using the same dice to represent both, that I'm remembering which one is which is just convoluted in general. Because even at the professional level, those counters are tracked with dice.
Yes.
So to put the burden of that on players was convoluted and unnecessary, but I definitely get from a flavor standpoint, the narrative is that yes, it's poison. You know, you're poisoned. That isn't just gonna go away, just because you got like unholy strength or whatever. So you're getting +2/+2 in the form of +1/+1 counters. But I do think ultimately it was, of course, a good mechanics change to go back to them canceling each other out. But then to present, like, the idea is if we look later at another set, a Moncat block, where -1/-1 counters were like a curse, right? And then you could look at +1/+1 counters as like a blessing, which I believe was also a theme in that set, just not as pronounced. But so just that. I can see it going both ways from how it could be flavorful one way and flavorful the other way, but it's hard to reconcile both of those things mechanically to get both like narratives out of it. So I think ultimately though they did settle on. I think if you have something like that, because obviously sometimes when you're going top-down design with these mechanics, if you can't reconcile to what are functionally similar mechanics that have two different sets of flavor fuels, so that you would want them to work two different ways, but you can't reconcile that because they're just basically the same things working differently, it's best to go with the player-friendly option, right?
Yeah.
Whichever one is more convenient.
And I think that's going to be a theme for a lot of these, is you go back to the beginning of Magic, and a lot of things were far more complicated than they need to be. And people complain about, oh, they're taking away the complexity. Well, there's a point where complexity is actually a bad thing, and it's putting too much burden on the people playing.
Hey, listen. If people want complexity, talk to your favorite local judge about how Dress Down works with Magus of the Moon, and then you'll have a nice 35-minute talk on the layers of Magic.
Oh my god.
And why, when you dress down a Magus of the Moon, all of your lands are still mountains.
Or what was the old one? Humility and Opalescence?
Yes. How does it work? And the answer is layers. Like an onion.
Which one got played first?
Well, that one was timing. So the way it works with Dress Down and Magus is it doesn't matter which one comes into play first, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
What matters is the ability that is modifying lands is at a layer above taking abilities away because of what kind of ability it is.
Yeah. Okay.
So the way it works is you always have to check through the layers. So folks at home, if you thought Magic wasn't complex enough, again, talk to your favorite local judge about layers in Magic, and you can get a nice 30-minute lecture on how this works. And chances are is they may even be wrong about it because it's really complicated, and they don't test you on it until you go for your L2 now. But yeah, it's at a higher, and so anytime you have something that changes it, you check the list top to bottom again. And since that's above, it makes the check through until it reconciles at a lower layer. And honestly, it is convoluted and stupid, but it is the reason why we play Magus of the Moon in our Isn't Murktide decks in Modern.
Alright.
7D chess, everybody. Remember. But, no, I agree, though. That is going to be a theme. A lot of the changes, and even some of the most flavorful changes, I would say, I think the flavor that they offered was different than what was originally intended from it, from like the way they designed it, but ultimately settled on a less convoluted, more player-friendly, just better quality of life game system changes.
Yep.
So I think this will be a perfect opportunity to talk about probably one of the first monumental changes to the game. Which would be we changed from the batch to the stack.
Yes.
Because they are two different things. So I'll let you explain what a batch is for our folks at home.
Now, I've gone over this a few times. I still need to look up a guide.
Okay.
So the way that the batch worked is that you would cast you'd announce your casting of your spell to put it on top of the batch. You choose a value for X or choose modes. You choose targets and any divisions, and then you would pay costs. And also at
that part's still the same, by the way, just for everybody at home. That part is actually very drastically similar, just
yes. So
to what it is now.
Yes. So the primary difference in those steps is you would have to pay the mana before you cast the spell.
Yes, that is the difference.
Yes. So now when you cast the spell, you pay the mana as it
yes.
as you're putting.
It's been streamlined basically from there, but that is ultimately what it looks like. Still, just we've streamlined the language in the game system.
Yeah. So then it would be you cast your spell. You can hold priority to cast another spell as long as the timing's correct. Until you pass to your opponent, they can do the same and pass back and forth until you both decide that you're done. And then the batch is made. And at this point, unless you involve interrupts. If you have interrupts, only interrupts can respond to interrupts, not instants. So if you've ever played Yu-Gi-Oh!, this might just sound like the chain link system.
Yes.
Because it is.
It's exactly what it is. You could say that when you're making a batch, it is functionally similar to the stack. But once you have both agreed that you are not playing anything else, like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Chain system, it's going to keep resolving everything until it's resolved everything, and there's really no chance to do anything in between. So basically, it sounds like the key difference now is that we would do all of those same things, but then when what would have been the batch starts resolving, priority gets passed back and forth in between every card, in effect.
Yeah.
So
now, if we're talking about flavor in this, and we'll go over the flavor of the stack as it exists now, I understand because this is I can imagine two mages gathering up their mana to cast all the spells that they want to cast and having a giant battle casting their spells, and then that's an individual contained battle that happens. So each batch is a contained battle as opposed to a continuous duel.
It feels like it's like you and your opponent you choreograph a fight, and then it happens, and then we can choreograph the next one. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
Like narratively, how that's being perceived as the game.
Yeah, and then the stack is more of an active duel.
Yeah, it's like it's real time.
Yeah, no, like I'm not going to necessarily be like, okay, I'm gonna throw a left punch, then a right punch, then an uppercut. And you're gonna okay, well, I'll do this, blocking. However, I might want to, throw something else in the middle there.
I throw a right hook, you have a chance to respond.
Yep.
You throw an uppercut, and then I kick you in the nuts.
Wow, not even gonna sweep the leg.
Just straight for the nuts. That's my purse. I don't know you, like. But then you could be like, well, I'll block that and then I'll cross chop your throat. Like, I don't know. Just like there's real time action happening. It's honestly crazy that when you think about it to a certain degree, it feels almost like they took what would have been you storyboarded combat, like how you'd want an encounter to go in like an RPG. And but then, which is not a game system, that's storyboarding. very
Yep.
different. And then it changed into like how like Dungeons and Dragons actually functions, and like how like things like Final Fantasy, which would have been a popular game at the time,
Oh yeah.
actually functions, where it's turn-based RPG style combat, which I think is ultimately a better game system, because it offers more complexity, believe it or not. They by making the game system in a little more logical and simpler, you've actually added more complexity because you've increased player agency. So I think mechanically, sound change. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But what flavor would you prefer? Do you prefer to storyboard combat, or do you prefer a real-time action game?
Ooh, so that's the thing I've been struggling with lately. I've been looking to get for games to replay. One's for just enjoying, and one for like I'm trying to speed through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do think that more of like an action combat is something that's going to be considered like a serious competitive thing where there's going to be a time limit. You want something that moves faster, that's more action, that's more like you do this, okay, I let you do this, but then I do this before your next thing. Um, I would be interested in playing a game with someone where we tried to use the batch system, but given the way cards are designed now, I don't know if that'll be possible. Just to
Like
see
how
how it
all
what it's like.
interrupts have been eroded to be instants, and
Yes.
we got rid of that card type entirely.
Yep, and what summons were creatures were summons because they technically weren't the creature.
Yeah, creatures weren't creatures on the stack. They were
Yes.
summon creature spells. Where now we just say creature spell, and that opened the room for cards like Essence Scatter to exist,
Mm-hmm.
for example, which I guess you
Yes.
could have technically made a spell that said counter target summon creature
Summon
spell,
creatures.
but also like why would you add a third word? Like,
Yes.
that you're just adding words for the sake of it at that point. But I think ultimately the batch was it feels when I think about it, it feels like if I were to design a game from nothing, because that's ultimately where Magic's game system comes from, is nothing.
Yes.
I understand why you would have settled on something like the batch system, and the
Mm-hmm.
stack system is like a natural evolution of the batch system. But it feels like the other thing to keep in mind is that the batch system would have been made by Richard Garfield. The stack system would have been made by Wizards of the Coast, who
Yes, and they
notably makes Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah,
And
and
so I
they
don't think it's an accident that the stack system functions more like a real-time combat RPG system.
yeah, and they still have their source being in like computer science stuff. So it
Yeah.
still makes sense because they're both related. So
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's the other thing to keep in mind. Yes, because like early code and how you would code a program to execute a function, which is similar to the batch system,
yep.
realistically. Where
Mm-hmm.
we would do all these things in a sequence, and then you'd execute that program. That logic holds where the batch system comes from. But it's
Yes.
also like rigid thinking, where you're locked into your preconceived notions. Where then we evolved to this stack system, and I think it's been a good change. And I like the flavor of like it being real time combat, and that makes it more interesting ultimately.
Oh, for sure.
Let's move on, because
Yes.
speaking of things, because of all things to go from being on the stack to not being on the stack, that is damage, which oddly enough
Damage.
now resolves in batches.
Yes.
Gotta love what we did. I can't say one step forward, two steps back, because technically, and I'll explain this. So up until about 2002, combat was weird. Damage actually worked the way it does now until 2002, but you could be backed out of combat, which there is a misconception that that can still happen today. There are scenarios where it can technically happen today, but that being you declare your intention to attack, and your opponent Meaning you declare you're saying before combat, I would like to attack with these creatures, and then your opponent has a chance to respond. Say they tap your team or whatever. Now you go back to your main phase. You've been backed out of combat, and it gets really tricky. And then you can have this back and forth, but you can't declare attackers again.
Yeah, and it had something to do with combat happened in the old main phase. They weren't split up into two different phases.
That's correct. So at least the beginning of combat, it was like a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
Where there was a chunk of combat that was part of the main phase and then a chunk that wasn't. That functioned basically as its own phase. And then the other thing was tapped blocking creatures actually dealt no damage. Because they were cowering and fear was the idea.
Yes.
But in 2002, going into, I believe, 6th edition. That sounds right in my head.
Yes, it was 6th edition. I have the references up.
We removed the backing out of combat as it worked. There are ways you can technically still be backed out of combat in a function, but it's not like you're not declaring. Once you are declaring attackers, you are in combat. Your opponent has a chance to respond in general to you saying, I would like to go to my combat phase. But there's no like stopping you from going into combat realistically from there. It's a handful of spots in the rules where it can happen. They also removed the tapped blocking creatures deal no damage because that shit was stupid. From a game system standpoint, it was very confusing, and it made cards like Fire Ice, Icy Manipulator, and a handful of other cards way too good compared to what they should have actually been. But we added something. We added damage on the stack. Because this would have been not too long after the batch to stack change. And so they wanted to move combat out of the batch system and into the stack system. So the way that this worked was my creature we would assign damage just like we do now. And then those things would go on the stack, and there'd be priority passed in between packets of damage. So it functions just like the stack as we know it today, just with damage instead of spells. So, for those who might be thinking of a classic Magic the Gathering creature called Morphling, who had a boatload of activated abilities, or more relevantly, Aeromoeba, these were creatures that could change the power and toughness. Now you might be wondering, how does that work with damage on the stack? That was, if I had a 3-powered Aeromoeba who could discard a card, you could discard a card to swap its power and toughness, I would put 3 damage on the stack, I would discard a card and change it back to being a 1/3, but it would still deal 3 damage on the stack. The other thing would be is once damage is on the stack and my creature dies, it still deals that damage. So, Drabynoops, few things that I think of here, mechanically, is that I like that they removed the 2 things that they did. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, they did change damage back to being in the batch system.
Yep.
They did that in about 2010. Damage on the stack had an 8-year run. You know, the Lampoon run, if you will. But, ultimately it changed back. And funnily enough, I brought up the exact reason why. It is because creatures that die dealing damage makes absolutely no sense mechanically or even within the context of a narrative. Like, I'll assure my opinion, it's stupid. Mechanically, it was dumb, and I think it was overall an unflavorful change. I feel like it was them overcorrecting the batch system, is what it really felt like.
Yeah, so prior to damage on the stack, too, the way damage worked was you would, deal damage, and then you would have a damage prevention step.
Yes.
So you could activate things like regenerate or the white boon that prevents the next 3 damage.
Yes, they had a specific phase where you could play those specific cards. or
Yes, and
effects.
then those cards and effects could not be played in any other location.
Yes, which is
Um,
confusing in of itself.
yes,
If you needed another reason to hate Healing Self.
which means you could not regenerate in response to, say, like a Doom Blade.
Yeah, it was non-existent.
Yeah,
It's why
so
the text on the card Incinerate has never made sense until after the change.
mhm,
Because it was like an instant that dealt 3, but then the thing couldn't be regenerated. They'd have a chance
yes,
to regenerate it. It's so weird how it worked. But ultimately, I think we could unequivocally say flavor-wise, it was stupid.
no, yeah.
Like beforehand.
If I deal 3 damage to your 5/1, and then after damage you pay a bunch of mana to make it an 0/4 and it lives, no.
Yeah, exactly. The damage on the stack was stupid for a myriad of reasons. Both from a mechanic standpoint, it was very abusable, and then from like a flavor standpoint, it's like, so if I swing at you with my massive hammer, and then like by the time, but then when combat's done, it's a ball peen hammer, but you still took up all the damage of the massive hammer. It's just like, I don't think I like that all that much. That didn't make sense. But then even beforehand, things like regenerate, where it's just like, well, being having to play to these very specific windows of time just felt like it made it convoluted, and like if I think of like a Dungeons and Dragons game, like you can cast like buff spells that prevent damage, right? Before they would take the damage, not in the instant before they take damage. The second before, like you could cast it going into combat, right? Or
Yeah.
pre-combat or before damage, because I feel like that was like, again, that's a quality of life improvement that also like made the narrative of the game that you're playing make more sense with all of our other like gaming conventions that we have.
Mhm.
So, I think you and I agree, ultimately positive change on both sides
Yeah.
of the columns here. But this one's gonna be a little more of a quick fire round, because I brought up some things that heavily impact combat, that were not rules changes. These are more design changes.
Okay.
So how cards fit into the rule system. Flying versus Shadow. Which one do you like better?
I mean, I like flying.
I would think everybody else likes flying too, because we've gotten one Shadow card in the last 10 years. But for those who don't know the difference, flying is, well, flying. It's really hard to not explain flying by just saying the name. Shadow was a new take on flying, which has actually a super flavorful background to it. Do you know where Shadow comes from?
I actually do not.
Shadow is from the original lore, Dominaria Wrath lore, where creatures abducted from Dominaria but went to Wrath, were, tortured or whatever,
Yep.
get stuck in between the two planes, or the Shadow,
Ooh.
and
Yep.
therefore they can only interact with each other physically. They can't interact with creatures
Mm.
from other planes or from within planes, because they're not within planes, but they do have other impacts on the world. So that's where it comes from.
Okay.
So super deep lore, but this is where it felt like we went too deep, game mechanics wise, to try and
Deep
satisfy some piece of lore we made.
has it, but it did it go as deep as horsemanship?
I would argue that it did not go horse deep, which take that as you will. But I think horsemanship is, yeah, it's another example, because like I had banding and horsemanship on my list, but I didn't really even want to have to get into. Like, I need a visual aid to explain banding to people, because
Yes.
it's like, and because it was also like a mechanic that like worked differently before they changed damage a bunch, and how damage worked. But basically, it's like when if you have a 2/2 attacks, and you have a banded 2/2 with it, It's essentially a 4/4.
Yes.
Is essentially how it works.
And then also you get to choose how the damage is split among banded
That's
creatures,
correct.
not your opponent.
Yes, you get to assign the damage from your opponent to the band, which is, if you thought it was dumb and convoluted, you would be right, and they don't make banding cards anymore. And horsemanship, honestly, like, horsemanship was like the wrong. I feel like horsemanship and shadow represent going too deep into the lore. But
Yeah.
then, like, I think on the flip side, there's other things like, what is it, Bushido
Mm-hmm.
went just deep into the lore enough, but then actually just turned out to be way too abusable. It just like made combat really
Yeah.
difficult for especially less skilled players.
Mm-hmm.
And then what the hell is it? Is it the Boros mechanic from Return to Ravnica, where you attack with like 3 or more creatures? Battalion. That was another
Yep.
good example. Like, those are combat game design choices that are just like, I think, super flavorful, but also like play really well into the game system. But
Yeah.
yeah, the shadow horsemanship, not so much.
Yep.
Fear versus intimidate. Which one did you? First of all, which do you prefer? Which synonym do
Jeez.
you prefer?
I like intimidate.
It makes more sense.
Yeah.
So fear, for those who don't know, was a creature couldn't be blocked by except by black creatures and artifact creatures. Intimidate is that exact same rule, but sub-black for whatever creature the creature with Intimidate has. And again, another pretty conscious design choice. We don't see them anymore for good reason. They very rarely worked out to be fun when they're good, similar to shadow creatures. We'll move on. Unblockable versus Menace versus Skulk.
There's another one too, isn't there? That's like the opposite of Skulk, or no?
Yeah,
It's not. It's not a keyword.
yeah,
It's not
it
a
didn't
keyword.
get keyworded, but yes, there are cards that have the. So Skulk is they can't be blocked by creatures with power less than themselves.
Yep.
Which is weird because it usually ended up on like 1/1s and 2/1s, but and like
Yeah.
the occasional 3x, but like Menace can't be blocked except by more than one, and then Unblockable ruined Innistrad draft for most people.
Yeah, it's friggin' Skulk 2, which... Oh, no, it's greater power. Okay. Greater power than it.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I,
Denim Protector had the other one.
Yeah. I... this is weird, but I like Skulk the best.
I like Skulk and Menace.
Yeah.
I think Unblockable is a horrible mechanic.
No,
I think as like
don't...
a one-off thing, like a Distortion Strike, I think it's
Yeah.
a fun little novelty, but you can't do it all the time. But like, the hell is the name of the 1/1 from Innistrad that it had hexproof and Unblockable? It was just like stupid.
Oh, right. The Boggles guy.
Yeah, it was dumb. It was basically you just Voltron that thing up and you just win the game. Put a enchant the pike on it that makes it like a fucking 10/1.
Oh, yeah, because it mills your opponent and then...
Yeah, it's dumb. But I think ultimately Unblockable. I mean, I like the flavor of like a ghost being unblockable, but then you also have to make the argument of why can it even deal damage to me in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
If my creatures can't interact with it, is it like punching me on an ethereal level? Are you implying that the creatures I have on the battlefield have no souls to be attacked ethereally? So from like a flavor standpoint, it doesn't hold its logic, to me at least.
Yeah.
Unblockable, but I get where the idea would come from for things like ghosts and spirits to have an unblockable like keyword.
Yeah,
But honestly, flying subs in for that as well, where it's like, well, they can just wisp around things.
And
quickly.
Invisible Stalker, the one you were speaking of, isn't even a spirit.
Nope, it's like a human. Yeah, it's a human.
It's
It's Harry Potter wearing the cloak of invisibility. God damn it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like not yeah. That card was like a huge design error, but it makes sense why it's unblockable. It's it's
Yeah.
it's a kid. Yeah, it's a guy with a knife wearing his cloak of invisibility, stabbing me. I guess in the foot because he only deals one, but
Well, no,
non-fatally in the foot.
you give him spectral flight, don't you remember?
That's right. Yeah, you just attach dumb stuff on him, but I think Menace and Skulk make perfect sense though.
Yeah.
Flavor wise, like Menace, ogres have Menace. They're massive.
Yes.
Like you're not gonna like I mean we can get into a card like Deflecting Palm, but like you're not gonna have like your little 2/2 blocking a 5/2 ogre and like
By itself, yeah.
yeah, like successfully killing. You could give that ogre trample. I feel like would also get the flavor across really well. But like, if we think about if we think about combat with creatures as like a strategy game, right, where the stack is the real time action between you and your opponent. The battlefield, the combat system is an RTS game where you're top down looking at it. Is the way I think about it, and so I would never throw a 2/2 at the 5. The big thing with Menace. And there's other ways you can like design this in. Like you can have that thing be a 5/3, and then design and limit it at least creatures not being lined up in such a way that they could easily block a 5/3. But like then you could give it like trample. But I think Menace really does a good job because it feels like logically you'd have to have two things to block the big thing.
Oh yeah,
And maybe one of them dies and one of them doesn't.
and then I mean it works in other ways too because you can give menace to creatures that might be small but they would be intimidating, like
a wolf.
a wolf, a goblin with a knife,
A hamster.
hamster.
Boo has
Yes.
menace, hasted menace.
Who does have menace?
Yes, I love it. But yeah, I think flavorfully makes a lot. I think it may like unlike trample, it does a really good job of getting that kind of the narrative of that combat interaction. And Skulk feels like what you because it's perfect in Innistrad because like an ooze feels like it has Skulk.
Yeah.
It skulks me or it stalks me, stuff like that. So I do really like Skulk, but I feels like it's definitely less applicable than Menace because like Menace is evergreen now.
Yes.
And rightfully so. It's a really good mechanic that can help balance limited formats while also just being super, super flavorful. But this is again keeping with the quick fire on these design choices that relate. These ones I picked out were always related to combat. This one's a little more in general. We got protection from a thing versus shroud versus hexproof versus hexproof from a thing. So I think flavor wise, we can agree these would all have their place.
Yes.
Except
absolutely.
maybe shroud. I think in the narrative where I am the all-powerful wizard on my side of the battlefield, the fact is I have a creature that not even I can see. That's like I have a creature. This is my totally real girlfriend who lives in Canada, but she doesn't have the internet or a cell phone. But she's there, I swear. Like that's what shroud from. Well, I can't even see it. Like that's what that feels like. I would be like from like the narrative standpoint. Obviously, we know there's a game piece there. My opponent and I can both see it, but like the narrative we're telling with the game, that's kind of the impression that it gives me is that it's like believe me, I totally have this 3/3 with shroud, but hexproof solved that problem. Of I can see it, and my opponent can see it. They just can't interact with it because it has hexproof. They can't target it, so it can't be hexed. Hence the name hexproof. Similarly, hexproof from a thing. I feel like that's starting to get a little. I like hexproof from certain colors, I
Yeah.
feel like that stays within the flavor of hexproof, but when we started getting into hexproof from planeswalkers,
Yeah.
I started falling a little out of it. But I guess flavor-wise, it makes sense. You'd think like
Yeah.
there's bound to be some kind of character that can bestow protection from a planeswalker, or like the kind of magic a planeswalker would use, right? Think of
Yeah.
it, it's
Or
like
even
Naruto. They use sage jutsu, not ninjutsu.
or
Very
specifically
different.
too, like they can only be affected by people from their world. So
Yeah,
planeswalkers, as being from a different world, wouldn't
well,
be
yeah,
able to
they're just
affect them.
yeah, they have an entirely different essence. So,
Yep.
and then what? Now I want to hear your thoughts. So I mean, obviously I've played since like 90. What is it, like 97? No,
Hmm.
99. But so like protection is something that I'm very used to.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts? Let's start mechanically on how protection feels to you as a player.
So, um, as a person who's experienced it, there are cases where protection can feel overpowering. But I think though, but that part is whatever. There's any given mechanic that will do that. I think the part is when the look of confusion I will see on a less experienced player's face when say were to Wrath of God, their protection from white creature,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to explain to them it's damage,
Prevents damage, not destruction.
not destruction.
Yep. No, I agree with that. I think mechanically that's definitely a very confusing thing, especially for newer players.
Yep.
So I think that's pretty much. I think everybody has the collective opinion that protection feels very,
Yeah.
very overpowered more often than it isn't. When it's good, it's too good, and
Yeah.
creates confusion. Because a big one that I remember was explaining how trample works when your creature is being blocked by a creature with protection from the color of that creature.
Oh
Which is
yeah.
that you can assign enough damage that would normally be lethal, and then the
Yes.
rest to your opponent, and then it just doesn't deal damage. Where a lot of new players would just assume, well,
It would.
technically no amount of damage could be lethal, therefore all my damage is faded.
Yeah.
That's a really easy and slippery slope to get new players with the gotcha.
Hmm.
The old classic like kind of rules lawyering.
Yep.
It's similar to the Cedric Phillips classic play of, are you sure you're targeting yourself with that Esper charm?
Yeah. Yes. Which like
Which took
it.
advantage of people not knowing how their Esper charms worked.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're at a tournament that level, that at that point it's the other player's fault.
No, I agree. Once you're at like a competitive to pro REL, like it's still like obviously it would suck. Like if you're a competitive REL, like your first PTQ and you're still not very experienced, kind of a bad beat story. But like yeah, if you're at like a pro tour and you don't know how protection works, well, that's on you for being underprepared. But
Yeah.
now from a flavor standpoint, I'm gonna pick three cards out that I think will be really good to talk about. Circles of Protection, specifically the card God's Willing,
Hmm.
and then uh, True Name Nemesis. That's a good example that I think is the opposite of those other two.
Yep.
So from a flavor standpoint, how do you feel about Circles of Protection?
I do like the circles from a flavor standpoint because uh, white would always traditionally be associated with like clerical protection magic,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would be, and obviously since it's a circle, it's something that you could have up continuously as an enchantment, but then anytime you protect against something you have to put mana into it because it's still consuming your power to protect yourself from said
Mm-hmm.
thing. um, the fact that it is multiple uses of a single time protection, I think is beautiful. Actually, I
Yeah,
think
I
circles might be my favorite protection effect.
I had a similar thought, but it's actually a little different. Where like the me paying the mana is like I'm taking a resource that's like the thing that I'm protecting is I'm moving the circle to this other
Yeah,
thing
okay.
and moving it in whatever play or moving things into it. But yes, that's it. I had the same thought where it's just like from a flavor standpoint, this is like, well, yeah, I mean, I have this as like a cleric, I can give protection to things. And being able to do that multiple times makes sense flavor wise. I even do like them to a degree mechanically, but I do think like they have more room for abuse than what I think was maybe intended for sure. So yeah, flavor win, mechanical fail.
Yeah.
God's willing. How do you feel about the card God's willing?
Um, as a one-time boon from a celestial being, I do like it. Especially because basically all these ones that I like are temporary. The circle protection preventing damage, the next time it would happen. God's willing, giving protection for a turn,
Mm-hmm.
until end of turn. Like
Mm-hmm.
all these temporary stuff. I think when it comes down to protection, if it's a continuous effect, I really don't like it.
That's fair because my take on God's willing was very similar, where it's like it has all of the flavor winnings of the circles
Hmm.
with none of the mechanical shortcomings.
Yeah.
It felt very appropriate. You're appealing to the higher power and it bestows protection from a color, and then you're able to do your thing. Where True Name Nemesis, which matter of fact, I actually do think there's instances of it working and not working. I think True Name Nemesis is a failure mechanically
Yeah.
and flavorly, because like the flavor of True Name Nemesis doesn't make any sense
Yeah.
like at all. Like why is this random merfolk able to get like protection from everything the other person can do
Hmm.
to it, which except for destruction, it just makes no sense flavor
Yeah.
wise. There was no real lore given for it either to try and like appeal it, other than I believe it was actually a rejected Theros card that got put into the
Oh,
commander
okay.
product. So like it was gonna have probably some like place where it's like this is the thing that can kill Thassa or whatever dumb bullshit they were gonna say about it.
Mm,
But I do think there are ways to do it correctly. I think Progenitus does it good on the flavor front, where it makes
yeah.
sense that it has protection from everything, but it also has protection from you, because from the flavor that feels like I am the wizard and I have let loose Progenitus into the world.
Yeah. You reach too far. Like
Yeah,
you,
I've
you
gone too deep, and
Yep.
here's Progenitus. I do think Progenitus needed to do more drawbacks to really capture that flavor, but I think the overall card didn't capture the right flavor. But I think that clause
Yeah.
made a lot of sense. Um, let's move on
Sure.
because we got probably the biggest and most gradual change to happen that I think from a flavor standpoint really redefined a lot of things, but it also takes place over the longest period of time. So I'm gonna run the timeline for this because I have it in front of me.
All right. Fantastic.
We're gonna talk about here the Legend Rule, and by extension, Planeswalker Uniqueness Rule, which, to clarify, nowadays are the same rule. But so we'll start by explaining legendary creatures were the original legendary things. There weren't any other legendary cards at all in Legends. Um, so we look at, I believe there is a few exceptions. Like Tabernacle was legendary, but like a lot of things that you might think were legendary, like when Drabynoops and I had a pre-stream discussion about this, there were cards that we thought were legendary but are definitely not, like Library of Alexandria. Turns out you could have multiple libraries in Alexandria. Who would have thunk? They all look oddly the same. But you just typically don't want more than one library in Alexandria. But the original Legends were added to the restricted list from 94 to 95 when they were introduced, because they were not there in the first set. Meaning, so functionally the original legend rule was if you had a legend and your opponent played a legend, the latter copy would go to the graveyard. Functionally, you can't play yours while your opponent has one, because it's just, paying mana to do nothing. As well as they added this restricted list thing, where they put all the legends on a restricted list so you can only have one copy in your deck. Wasn't technically part of the rule, but they just, arbitrarily did that, because they all kind of sucked anyway. Even by the standards of then.
Yeah.
So, very interesting to see. Then, so from 1994 to 2004, we had this rule of the latter copy always went to the graveyard, and it was symmetrical. Meaning my one copy and my opponent's one copy were tracked together for legendary super types. 2004, we changed the rule. We get rid of that. Now it's any new copies of the legendary card. I have to say card, because by this point Kamigawa has happened. As well as Urza's Legacy and other sets, where we have had legendary lands and legendary now artifacts with cards like Umezawa's Jite coming into the format, and even enchantments, I believe. I believe the shrines were legendary.
Yes.
So now we had legendary cards, so the legend rule was expanded during that time frame leading up to 2004 to include multiple card types. But now it was, if a new copy was introduced, both copies went to the graveyard. And very notably, just as a side note, this made the card Phantasmal Image arbitrarily way too good. Because it would get around Indestructible and other abilities, as well as even Hexproof and Protection. Because Phantasmal Image could come into play as a copy of anything, even things that had protection from it. But very interesting, just side note with there. So from 2004 to 2013, that's the rule we have. Drastically changes how you can play those cards, because then that's when we had cards like Umezawa's Jite being played in creatureless decks to destroy opposing Umezawa Jite. And that's a slippery slope. Then in 2013, which I honestly thought that changed sooner, but it didn't, according to the history books, we changed where players now have segregated battlefields. So battlefields are asymmetrical. And the legend rule is only tracking my own cards. And when I play a new copy of a legendary card, I choose which one I keep, actually. And then the other is sent to the graveyard. So that's the rule we have now. Now, the Planeswalker Uniqueness rule, quite similar. Matter of fact, it is similar in virtually every way, except it was introduced specifically in Lorwyn, when the Planeswalker card type was introduced. Or rather, printed. It was introduced in the block prior on the rules text of the card Tarmogoyf, which referenced Planeswalkers as part of its power and toughness tracking ability. Because, of course. So this created basically the same rule. It was symmetrical. We could only have one Jace subtype Planeswalker. So it also originally tracked subtypes on top of the Planeswalker supertype. Meaning if you had a creature Jace, that would, not be tracked in this rule. A Planeswalker Jace. And that created scenarios where, things like 3-mana Jace from Lorwyn was used as a means to stop your opponent from functionally being able to play their Jace the Mind Sculptor. That's, the classic historical example of this being abused. So that was the rule we had for a very good while, and then it sort of followed track with the rest of the legendary rule. It changed to where it was in 2013. It changed to being the asymmetrical segregated battlefields, but still tracked the super type, the subtype on your side of the battlefield. Meaning if I played a 3-mana Jace and I played a 4-mana Jace, I would have to choose one to keep and the other would go to the graveyard. And then in Ixalan, which again feels like this rule has been around forever now. It was changed to where we are no longer tracking subtypes, and this is effectively where the Planeswalker Uniqueness rule went away, and it just became the Legend rule, because we added the legendary super type to all Planeswalkers, new and old, and made them start following the legendary rule, which tracks just the name of the card and not the subtypes of the card. Which, it's crazy to say, Drabynoops, but in the year of our Lord 2022, this feels like it's been the way we've always done things, but it is in fact only the way we've done things for like 8 years now, or whatever, or 6 years now. It's crazy. That was a lot of information, Drabynoops.
Yeah, but but it makes sense because this was the impetus of this entire topic. Was the legendary rule, Planeswalker Uniqueness rule, of how it affected the flavor. Now, I get the idea when they initially did it. It's like, okay, well, there's only one of a Jace, and we'll just use Planeswalkers for now because you can project it onto legendary creatures as well.
Yes.
So there can only be one Jace. So if your opponent has summoned a Jace, you can't also summon a Jace.
That's correct.
But that would be breaking the laws of the universe and time.
Exactly. Correct. There's one Jace in that. You can only. In effect, Jace was the same as you, the player.
Yes.
Which plays into some other rules that have changed around Planeswalkers as well. But yes, that's in function what that was narratively. There's only one Jace. They were the equivalent of a player as far as the narrative goes. And so there could only be one on any side of the battlefield.
Correct. And so when they change it eventually to the legendary rule and then segregated battlefields and such, we're slowly moving flavor-wise to the idea that the player is like an elder planeswalker. I don't know if that's the technical name. That's what I'm calling them.
We're a higher being than the planeswalkers.
We're pre-mending because characters like Urza and I think was Yawgmoth a planeswalker at one point?
No, Yawgmoth's whole story arc was how he wasn't a planeswalker.
Yeah, but he did have a planar
portal. Really wanted it. Well, he made one. He was like,
yes.
"Fuck this! I'll do it myself." Like,
yeah. So planeswalkers that existed back then, like Urza, could literally create and destroy planes. They could manipulate the timeline, even if they weren't a time wizard.
They were essentially gods versus and not like the Theros gods, like multiverse gods.
Yes. So
higher pantheon.
Yes, we're talking. The entire idea behind planar chaos, time spiral, and future sight were that the multiverse was in danger from the fuckery of the planeswalkers, and some of the planeswalkers came together and just made this decision that we are going to fix the universe. And part of fixing the universe is giving up our godlike powers, which then goes into Nicol Bolas' storyline about how he did not agree to that.
Yeah. Exactly. And now we have, instead of having these like multiversal gods, we have like the Avengers.
Yes. So yes. So it the rule as it stands now is more in line with you as the player being one of these higher beings, these more powerful planeswalkers. Because, hell yeah, I can summon 5 different Jaces from different points in his own life. Why the hell not?
Exactly. Like, I am this higher power being who's able to then do this. So, yeah, I completely agree. From a just pure flavor standpoint, I feel like it separates the player from planeswalker cards and does a really good job of empowering the player narratively to feel more unique, basically special compared to the game pieces themselves. Like, you're not just like another planeswalker, fucking around with your friends, your planeswalker friends to play out against another planeswalker. You're a you're the. It feels more like you're a chess player with you have your king, your queen, your opponent has their king, their queen. The same pieces, but we
Yeah.
can both summon them basically.
Hmm.
So I definitely feel like logically it also it makes more sense mechanically. It
Yeah.
makes more sense flavor wise. I think
Hmm.
it does everything correctly. Would be the way I would say it.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it took a while to get there, and I understand the decisions they made prior, but I think ultimately what they've currently settled on is good.
I agree. I think it is very very good, and ultimately I'm very happy with it. I
Hmm.
remember it being a very popular change as well.
Yes.
So I think we can pretty comfortably say that ultimately it's been a net positive to Magic.
Hmm.
Um, it took a while to get to the place
Yeah.
we are now, especially when you start factoring in creatures, in other
Hmm.
legendary super type cards. But it definitely feels like even though we took a long time to get to the rules we have now, I feel like we're in a really really good spot, and I don't see a need to change these rules anymore. Hence why
No.
they haven't changed since Ixalan. They finally did it because I think one of the things that and this is to Wizards of the Coast's defense to a degree is that like Magic is a living game. Like
Yes.
it's gonna change over time and it's gonna have to have new rules added. Like a big one that like this isn't a flavor thing, but like a big rule from like a gameplay standpoint where with cards like Chalice of the Void, right?
Hmm.
Like we had this mindset that you couldn't intentionally cast spells into Chalice of the Void, knowing that they wouldn't resolve, and like you have to like say that they won't resolve, like as the person playing the spell, but realistically it's your opponent's responsibility. And so there's definitely like a lot of rules, some small, some huge, like with combat, that are going to have to change over time until we settle on a system that actually works well, in some cases flavor wise, because this is a game we're playing, so the game's
Yeah.
flavor, though, shouldn't make rules convoluted or worse, should always be a factor.
Yeah.
We have a narrative that we're telling with each game we play, and but we also want that game to be replayable.
Yeah.
So that
No,
that
for sure.
which is where a lot of these changes come from. So I brought up here some of my notes. So this is less about the rules. It's hard, there's no case to defending the old legendary rules compared to the ones we have now, but
I
there
wouldn't say
there
so.
are some interesting notes on talking about how the legendary super type has been used and how the
Oh, yep.
rules surrounding it have impacted that. So I brought up some good examples. Let's start with Tolarian Academy. So at the time of that card's printing, it would have been under the original Legend rule, where if I played one and you played one, yours would go to the graveyard because you played yours last. Under that rule, how does that card feel to you? Does the
Oh, sorry.
flavor,
Which?
Tolarian Academy, and that whole cycle,
Oh, yeah.
does the flavor sit well with you?
No, because like,
I think in hindsight, it's a hard no.
yeah,
I think
no,
at the
because
time it might have made sense because at the time we had two planes,
yeah, I
Dominaria
can
and Wrath. Like,
I can understand maybe like if you are I don't see lands as something that you are summoning. I see
no,
lands from a flavor standpoint as places that you are visiting.
or have
So
visited.
or have visited
Yeah,
that you can draw power from. So I
exactly.
while I
Knowledge is
understand
power. Go to school at Tolarian Academy.
while I understand that with the legendary creatures, like, oh, you can't summon a creature that's already been summoned because that would
Mm-hmm.
like break the laws of the universe, blah 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 blah. You both as planeswalkers could have visited these places and drawn
Yes,
power from them.
exactly. Me and my opponent could both have Tolarian Academy as our alma mater. Like, that's entirely
Yeah.
possible and honestly highly likely, given the given end. Or if you're like somebody like me who came from humble beginnings, Tolarian Community College is your alma mater because you couldn't afford Tolarian Academy.
Yeah.
But you know, I digress. But yes, I think under the old rules, it was horrible flavor wise.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, only one person can draw upon the power of Tolarian Academy. Like, nah, it's stupid. Like, I think under the new rules, I really like the flavor of it. Where it's like,
Yeah.
I can only have one. And my opponent can also have only one. I like that it's the asymmetrical now. And it's tracked independently. So each player can draw upon mana from the lands. So I think it's an example of not designed well at the time, but has aged well.
Yes.
That whole cycle. Alright, next cycle example. Kamigawa was 2002. The legendary Kamigawa lands. So Shizo, Shinka, Minamo, another one, and another one.
Buseiju.
Iganjo was one of them, and Buseiju was colorless
Yes, that
at the
was
time.
weird.
Buseiju, who shelters all, was not a green land, but I'm pretty sure it filled in the green one.
Yeah, I
But
believe so.
yes, and there were multiple. There was also Obero and a handful of others. But ultimately, again, I think these fall into that same category of lands that at the time were flavor fails because of the mechanics, making the flavor not make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And again, have aged well. Believe me,
Yeah.
I have copies of Shizo, Shinka, Minamo in my binder that's behind me down under this table back here because they're all very good cards, just like generically, but also like the fact is they don't have this drawback of my opponent playing them means they're going to sinkhole mine or vice versa, depending on the rules we were in, because this was around the time when those rules changed. Because that was going into 04, which would have been not too long after Kamigawa. This would have changed to where instead of the latter one goes, they both go. So I think if we look at it even under that rule set, I like it even less.
Yeah.
From a flavor standpoint. So interesting to see how the mechanics, which we could arguably justify for creatures and planeswalkers, we can't justify it all for things like lands.
Yeah.
I could justify it for something like Umazawa's Jite even, like more than creatures and planeswalkers even, but but not for the lands. So, but now I want to look at the flip side. Well, not many legendary lands happen, actually, believe it or not. They're very scattered about. A really good example of some lands that probably we'll talk. We won't go in deep on these, but I'll just list off a few really good examples of well-designed legendary lands. Urborg, Yavimaya, both perfect examples of lands that feel legendary. They do a very powerful thing, and what they do makes sense mechanically and flavor-wise. If you've been to Urborg, chances are is you've gone for a little dip in the old black water down there, and that's not a good place to be, because that means you're going to be producing a whole hell of a lot of black mana, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
Hence why my experience with Urborg so I'm drawing upon my experience with Urborg by playing that land taints my opponent as well. Because I'm covered in swamp juice, which is also known in the South Bayou as swamp ass. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And Yavimaya, it's more of like I'm blessed. I smell like the pine smell. I smell like pine sol. I'm covered in pine juice. And I get you covered in pine juice, and now we both can draw upon the green mana of Yavimaya. So when I put the flavor like that, it is both incredibly more creepy than intended, but at the same time, I think from a flavor standpoint, it makes sense. And I think from a mechanic standpoint, they're some of my favorite lands to ever exist, and I really hope we get more lands like them at some point. But now let's look at the flip side. Field of the Dead. Should it have been legendary, Drabynoops?
I don't know the lore of the Field of the Dead.
It's one place.
It is one. Yeah. Then.
It's a core set, so the lore was super loose anyway, but because
Yeah.
there could be multiple Fields of the Dead, but like, you know, it's a land that was very intentionally not made legendary.
Yeah.
Because a big part of that land, from a design standpoint, and we'll see this with later lands, was that this was around the time of Throne of Eldraine. I believe this was the core set right before Throne, even.
Yes.
Because in Throne of Eldraine, we introduced the castles, and the castles weren't legendary either. Garen Brigg,
Yep.
probably being the most notable example to see play on multiple copies. But, it's like, we had this idea that the legendary land thing was, like, not good. Like, Mark Rosewater hates legendary cards. Like, pretty historically. He does not, especially lands. You can concede creatures and planeswalkers being legendary, but legendary lands can be a little harder. And I understand from a game mechanics standpoint why when you design some lands you wouldn't want them to be legendary. You don't want people only having to buy one card out of your booster packs. You want them getting 4 of them. The game mechanics was money the whole time. If you have to get more rares, then more packs have to be bought.
Yep.
Think about it. But I digress. These lands should have been legendary. I think we can all agree from a flavor standpoint it makes no goddamn sense why they aren't.
Yeah, I mean, World Tree, Valakut. Like...
Yeah, the World Tree is another one. You have Valakut, Emiria, that whole rotation of lands. The World Tree, yeah, even more so.
I wonder...
Unless it's the Naruto series, then the World Tree can be made like 7 times in one season or whatever. I'm just kidding. That's an exaggeration. I believe it's only 3 times over the course of 2 shows. In their defense.
So all right. So I got a question for you. The Innistrad cycle, Nephalia, Drownyard, the Rakdos one that deals 2 damage.
Sure.
Are these specific locations, or are these things that you just see?
They were not specific locations.
Okay.
So you can have more than one Drownyard. One for children, one for pets.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, where you drown them in their respective drown yards. But things like. But there's definitely like this idea that there's definitely a clash that I get from a game mechanic standpoint. You want people to be able to play 4 copies of like this powerful card, right? Legendary lands having that kind of drawback, but then we see like cards like Valakut slip through. Yeah. I think Valakut and Field of the Dead are probably like the most notable examples of like designs that like if they were legendary, they would have been far more balanced. Because like you look at Field of the Dead and it's banned in like every format from modern to standard. Like, and I say that because it's banned in every format in between. Like, Pioneer, Explorer, Historic, Standard, Brawl. It's banned in Brawl. I'm shocked it's not banned in Commander just for consistency's sake. But like, it's one of those things. And Valakut has been problematic. And Valakut was banned at one point in Modern. It was on the initial banned list, even though for whatever reason, it wasn't realistically that good. I think Modern's a perfect home for a card like Field of the Dead. But I'll tell you, as a person who has played a Primeval Titan into 2 Field of the Deads, that card is not okay and should have been legendary. I think that the legendary flavor is awesome. I love all legendary cards. I think it's so cool when something is legendary, because for me as an individual, I just think it like makes these cards feel special.
Yeah.
Like Urborg is my favorite land card of all time because it's special. And it's unique. It's legendary, as one might say. Where Field of the Dead, if it was legendary, I'm sure it would actually be looked at very fondly by most people. Where, as like a player who's played with and against it a lot, I detest the card on a fundamental level. And it's a card that I will give Mark Rosewater credit, has admitted should have been legendary. So, see that in your historic rebalance at some point. But we'll talk about the flip side, because I will give Wizards of the Coast where credit is due. The Kamigawa channel lands from Neon Dynasty are legendary.
Yes.
So I think that is cool. I really like that they did that, because they didn't. This, I feel like, was a perfect example of you wanted to design something uniquely powerful and then also Sokensan. And then you baked the drawback in, because you notice this is just from a design standpoint. This is a very common design philosophy, I feel like, now, where you build powerful card A and bake drawbacks into it to turn it into card B.
Yeah.
So it feels like they designed, like, Sokensan is probably the one that got the biggest beating of, like, and to be honest though, if Sokensan wasn't legendary, it would probably be problematic.
Oh
Like,
yeah, for sure.
because like that card's a nightmare if you have it in like a mono red deck. That's a 4 of for free. But like, I really like that they brought legendary back, because again, all of these lands are looked at fondly, with the exception of maybe Buseiju if you play modern, because it's really doing a lot of damage in that format. But some good, some bad damage. But it's interesting to see that the legendary rule both ruined a lot of cards from a flavor standpoint, and nowadays makes them all feel special and unique, which is really cool, but without any of the mechanical drawbacks of like having to worry about your opponent having them. But now we're even seeing where legendary is like used as a drawback in the game mechanics standpoint. So it's like it's a positive for the game mechanics, and then also like a positive for the flavor. So Drabynoops, legendary cards, are they awesome?
I do love me some legendary cards. I will say though, while I do like channel, as a mechanic as well as like cycling and things that trigger off their own cycling. I mean, I love me a nimble obstructionist, but I don't think channel was where I wanted the Kamigawa lands to be, and I understand that they did not want to add another mechanic that is functionally still just channel. But
Yeah.
I think from a flavor standpoint, the Kamigawa, most recent Kamigawa lands should have had grandeur.
I could have seen that.
So you still have to play one to get the effect. You have to have been to Boseiju
Yeah.
in order to use the destruction effect. You had to have been to a Ganjo to affect combat.
I think I like that too. I don't think I would have liked it. Obviously, they couldn't have been tap abilities. I think that would have just been the castles all over again. But I do like the idea of using grandeur instead of channel. Because I actually think that would have been really, because that would mean like that would bake in from a game design standpoint the need to have multiple copies. Yep. So like you'd probably have to play like 3 copies of a card in order to realistically like utilize its grandeur ability, right?
Yeah.
And I think from a flavor standpoint, it makes sense. I think the current flavor of channel lands is that by them being in your deck, it's implied you've been there. But then you run into some problems of like, well, then if you never drew it into your hand,
I think
like, were you actually there?
Yeah, I think it probably has more to do with the because it was very much a technology versus tradition.
Yes.
And
grandeur was a debunked mechanic that sucked on the one card it was ever put on.
Well, no, it was put on 5.
That's right. It was a whole cycle in Future Sight, right?
In Future Sight, yeah.
Yeah, and they all suck. Because they can't be played in Commander. But, because that's the real reason why they wouldn't go with grandeur. Let's be honest. You're trying to think of some convoluted reason. It's like, no, they're like, we're going to be given like 17 different versions of this artwork on cards. Like, we need to have this card be legal in Commander. How else will we sell booster packs?
Yeah, no, they need to. There needs to be a demand in the secondary market.
Yeah, in the secondary market of Commander, because that's all they care about. Double Masters 2022. I got 4 modern cards and a pile of commander chaff. I can't wait. I'm just kidding. If I crack a pack and there's an Imperial seal in it, I'm gonna get giddy like a schoolgirl. But
I mean, I'm absolutely gonna purchase a full art of Muldrotha because
why not? Like, I don't get me wrong. I really enjoy reprint sets that give like upgraded goodies to people in Commander, because like there's a lot of cards that never got like alternate art treatments and other things that are becoming commonplace now. So why not throw the the really iconic and popular ones into something like a Masters set? I would have preferred a separate set called Commander Masters, where it's all Commander focused, and I really dislike sets like Double Masters just being an across the board thing. I like focused master sets that are meant for a specific consumer, but I also understand that this is easier. That's the put all your eggs in one basket. This is the don't put all your eggs in one basket approach, and I get why as a business why Double Masters exists. But oh boy, I don't think I can think of any other major rules changes. There was a few things that got streamlined over the years, but nothing that had a flavor implication.
We did go over planeswalkers are no longer analogous to the player, which is why they removed the burn damage redirect rule.
Yeah, so it used to be that if damage was being dealt to a player by a non-combat source, you would choose whether or not to redirect it, which was actually really confusing and created weird scenarios where it was just like, well, I don't know if they're going to target my planeswalker or my face. I don't know if I should counter this or not, right?
Yes.
That's
chosen upon resolution
and not up front. Where in which, funnily enough, was Dominaria, which was one of our first return to the legendary as a theme sets. Or historic was the key word they made. We changed that sneakily by putting in an arena update. And then telling nobody until it was called out on Twitter that now things are going to say any target, and you no longer do that on resolution, you do that on casting, which I think is again analogous to the player change that we talked about with the legendary rule in Ixalan, especially feeling like, wow, this is just like this makes more sense mechanically, and it better aligns with the flavor we were working towards.
Yeah.
Overall positives. I think pretty much all of the sweeping rules changes. The only thing they added, by the way, that was ever taken away at a later time was damage on the stack.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of that one change, all other changes have been virtually positive.
Yeah.
Or neutral. They've just literally been like things like the layers in the rules. Like, there's a lot of background rules in Magic that most players had never knowingly interact with, and those things get fixed a lot and change a lot over time. But that's mostly to make them easier to explain.
Yes.
Than rather than make the game system easier, because we have a lot of shortcuts in tabletop Magic. But yeah, absolutely. Right now I won't lie. I haven't really thought about the narrative of a game of Magic for a long time. Mostly because I play, Lord knows how many matches a week now. But
oh yeah,
it's just like when you isolate and individualize a game of Magic. Yeah, it's super exciting. The way the narrative is structured now, the way the game plays out. This honestly sparked my passion a little bit more than it has been lately. So
it's
very happy.
I've been reconstructing Muldrotha, digging through it, and outside of cart, I've taken a theme. I've decided the mage that channels and summons Muldrotha is a being that wants to take your spells. So I've been pulling out all of the salty cards that don't explicitly do that. I do still have cards that are just good, so I can still play the game. But things like Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, they're gone because that doesn't feed into my.
Those are just good cards with permanent super types.
Yeah, they just don't feed into my narrative. So
Well, I think you could argue something like Mystic Remora or even like Rhystic Study. You're not stealing cards; you're stealing mana.
that's true.
Like
That's true.
so I think you could fit that into your theme if you count stealing mana as an option, or like Agent of Treachery being a more literal way of stealing mana, just
Yeah.
as an example. But no, and I think when you start analyzing things, especially things like casual or even like moderate CEDH, I guess is a thing people say now,
Yeah,
where
just
like
the
you're not casual, but like you're also not full on like I own all 10 beta dual lands in my commander deck. I'm just kidding. That's never what CDH players are like. They're like, this is
no.
my beat up Chinese proxy. Uh,
Yeah.
that if you ask is totally real. If this is a thing there, they care about proxies. But uh, the no, like where you're not like taking deck building so seriously that it's like
Yeah.
we're doing this stuff. But yeah, I think when you really analyze, especially something like Commander from that point of view, which I had to really take time throughout this last week to really think about Magic in these terms again.
Hmm.
I think that makes that format sound a lot more fun and appealing,
Yeah.
especially if your whole play group is into it.
Yep.
But let's move on because we're not just doing a podcast.
No.
It is Tuesday night, and we play Magic on Tuesdays. We've got a new gameplay series for y'all that we're gonna pilot tonight,
Yeah.
where we're gonna just call it something simple for now, just a gauntlet run. So Drabynoops, you'll be playing the Challenger
Yes.
probably for the first few episodes because I own every card. Um,
True.
And so the way this is going to work is Drabynoops, we're going to pick a format, which is more often than not probably going to end up being Explorer for the
Mhm.
time being, where Drabynoops will take a deck, either of his own design or a deck he saw online that he's really liking or he's been playing on his own time, and he's going to run it through the gauntlet. For the pilot here, I will be taking two of the top popular metagame decks from the format and playing Drabynoops with them. And then I'll be taking one wild card deck. Which Drabynoops, it's time to choose one or two.
All right, we're gonna go with two.
Okay, two it is.
I,
So
I, I want the prime choice.
that's fair, respectable. But and we'll also play that out. That being the in the wild card criteria, because I do have criteria for it, is a deck that was either featured recently on something like Channel Fireball, a deck that's maybe up and coming in the metagame but isn't super established quite yet. Maybe it hasn't reached its final form, or even a deck that is just like generally considered tier 2 but maybe has a powerful proactive game plan. So that like a good example of that, which this is not the deck by the way, Drabynoops, is Arclight
Okay.
Phoenix in Explorer is generally considered tier 2, especially post iteration ban, uh, but is still a deck with a proactive game plan.
Yeah.
But all right, we're gonna dive on in though. So let's change this over. Say goodbye to Drabynoops' beautiful face, chat. Maybe we'll work out a template where we get you on camera for this too, which we'll use for the
Sure.
budget battle.
I do have an extension that I have used in the past that we might be able to discuss.
Okay, yeah, we'll figure that out. This is a pilot, so
Yep. Fair enough.
all right, we're gonna exit full screen. Everybody's gonna see my stuff here for a second. All right, we're gonna go to here, and we've been disconnected already from Arena. To be fair, it was running in the background the whole time, so I can't be too upset about it. All right. So, Drabynoops, I picked out two metagame decks to play you with. So, I have apparently just no friends in my friends list right now. Let me restart Arena here.
Yeah. Same. I guess I'll also restart.
This is where there's a bug and it doesn't work anymore. They got rid of the friends list. I wouldn't be surprised. The friends list thing was half baked to begin with.
we shadow updated to add a pet that costs $50, and now the friends list doesn't work.
Damn right. All right,
Hey.
there it is. All right, so the deck you'll be playing tonight, Drabynoops, is you'll be playing Rakdos Sacrifice,
Yes.
which is a deck that you really like, but it is in fact Michael Bonda's deck
Ooh, okay.
that he went 17-2 with over the weekend and didn't get an invite. And do you know why
Yep.
he didn't get an invite to the
Yes,
Pro Tour?
you had actually showed me that he could not finish his event because there was no one else playing.
That is correct. So Michael Bonda, for those who aren't aware, I hope I'm saying your last name right, Mike. But he was X, I believe X1 or XO. He was X1 in the qualifier weekend. And I'll bring this over for everybody. This is the picture he tweeted, where he sat in the queue. It's only 44 minutes left. And if I go back here, he sat in the queue for 2.5 hours. Specifically, let me pull it up here. 2 hours and 40 minutes in the queue, but nobody else was playing. So either everyone was eliminated or already qualified, and nobody else made day 2. Basically, what this means was there was an odd number of players with how the eliminations worked out. So he sat in the queue, and then didn't get an invite because there was nobody else in the queue.
Looks like he did get the invite. He tweeted out
Ooh.
6 hours ago, and they gave him a bye.
Okay, well that's good.
So.
Perfect.
Yeah, what was it? They asked me some technical details, and after looking through everything, they gave me a bye, which means I am playing at the next arena championship.
As he should be, because if I'm to be totally honest, I feel that's the only appropriate action for Wizards of the Coast to take here. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Good on him. So that means you have an arena championship qualified Rakdos Sacrifice list. And you'll be playing. We're going to start you off against the metagame. Do you want to go in ascending or descending order?
Let's go ascending. So worst first.
Yes. All right. And then, of course, this Thursday we'll be bringing you the episode 3 of the of the wonderful budget battle series. Which, by the way, did you see? What's their name? Command Knights.
Command Knights.
What's the popular Commander YouTube channel?
Command Zone.
I think so. All I know is that Ellie watches them more than she watches my content charts, but because they got more production value than we do, as it turns out.
That is entirely fair.
But they started a budget battle series.
That's awesome.
They can call it that, but somebody told me I'm pretty sure we invented it. All right, so you probably noticed the Gigantha on the other side of the battlefield.
Yeah.
All right. I see your Gigantha. I'm going to play against you like I'd play against somebody on the ladder, which is that Gigantha doesn't exactly mean you're on Rakdos or Jund. So I'm going to play this
Yeah, and I'm also looking at you're going first, which means I'm on the draw, and this hand is just not a good spread. So we're going to take this.
All right.
This is much more reasonable. I still need to draw a land, but
yeah, but that deck can function pretty well on just 2 lands.
Okay.
Honk. It's junk food.
Picking up. Yeah, I figured as much. After you played the Gilded Goose.
Boom. The card that makes this deck be Jund is Trail of Crumbs, folks.
I will be completely honest. I've been working on the budget battle, and I am desperately trying not to just build budget Jund food.
I can respect that. You should though. I think it's a deck that is as this is a tough choice actually. How many lands do I play? Okay. Going with the greedy choice. I think it's a deck that encapsulates the like MTG arena non-rotating formats.
Swinging
I love that you attacked me with this goose.
Yeah, it was necessary. I needed to
And just like Top Gun, Goose dies. And for anybody who's worried that I just spoiled Top Gun for you, that movie's 38 years old. Get over it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. What an interesting situation here.
This feels like you're about to casualty an Obnixilis.
But with Unlucky Witness and I've played a land, I don't know if I want to be doing that.
Ooh, that's true.
I
Yeah, you
think
probably
I'm
hold
gonna-
off for one turn. Oh, if you have Fable, easy hold off for a turn.
Yeah.
You could have led on an attack. That might have been reasonable,
That's
too.
true. That's true.
Jeez. Well, I'm not going to draw a third land from the looks of it. Now, to be fair, in my deck's defense, I bottomed a land off that first Trail of Crumbs to take the second Trail of Crumbs.
I'm actually really in a situation where I don't want to be doing that. So
I think that's reasonable.
I guess we're just yeah.
I think I'd actually rather chump block. It feels weird.
You get to bring back the cat anyways, so.
Well, yeah, the idea is I can sack a food next turn, pay one, look for a land.
All right, so now we're gonna be greedy.
Well, I think this is right. You have a treasure even, so.
Yeah. And the deck is pretty low to the ground.
So you know what? You know what's crazy?
Another...
Is that this used to be a matchup that favored Jund, but I don't think that's true anymore.
I think actually.
I think it used to be that. Actually, let's decline. Let's take 2. I got life total to play with. Yeah, this used to be a matchup that heavily favored the Jund deck. Because like the Jund deck used to be better at being grindy, but I actually think nowadays I think I like these Rakdos decks just a lot better.
Oh yeah.
In the matchup than I used to. I think like the dirtiest play that I think I've seen lately is where you claim the firstborn, your opponent's creature, and then like oh wow, I missed. And then you Obnixilis casualty it.
Yeah.
I just kill that. Small.
That's entirely fair.
Well, it's more of like, if I'm gonna kill it, I gotta do it now. I would love to kill this Reflection of Kiki Jiki, but oddly enough, I'm not set up to have Revolt super reliably. But I'm fairly certain that this game is already gone, if I'm being honest with you. I can't block that.
Okay.
Because now, here comes... If you have a Mayhem Devil, it shuts me out, I'm fairly
No, unfortunately not.
Okay. That's good, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to, like, somehow kill Unlucky Witness, and then get a land and a Mayhem Devil, and somehow be able to play them both. So.
Oh, Reflection is so dirty.
Yeah.
With Unlucky Witness.
Yep.
Just reading how... Because that doesn't exile it, it sacrifices it.
Yep.
Grody. Yeah, well, they're an epic here.
Yeah.
So if I was playing you in a tournament, I would concede right now. So I'm going to concede right now.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because though that game will play out for several turns, the game was over.
Mm-hmm.
That game had ended some time ago, I would say. All right.
Very interesting.
Yeah. No, I think I actually heavily favor your deck nowadays. Yeah, because it used to be very much like skewed towards these Jund decks being better in the matchup, but I definitely think over the last year, it's definitely shifted. That I'm actually not a big proponent of Jund Food and Explorer, which is why I was actually surprised that it came in as number 3 on the recent Channel Fireball Power rankings. But Rakdos, which traditionally has actually been included with it, but nowadays they're very different decks than what they, because it used to just be Rakdos was Jund without Corvold.
Okay.
Essentially, because then like
Yeah.
Trail of Crumbs, Gilded Goose, you opted for like a slower, grindier game plan versus this like much more low to the ground aggressive game plan. But nowadays, like I think like stuff like Ob Nixilis has really changed that dynamic of the Rakdos deck.
So I think
There's definitely scenarios where the Jund deck will just overpower you with stuff, but like it's definitely not how it used to be.
this is okay. I think
Nothing wrong with that. The
yeah.
post sideboard games, you could run those out like it's nobody's business.
That's fair enough.
Like we're not bringing our graveyard hate in against each other. That's not super effective. Like Scavenging Ooze can be, in like Graph Digger's Cage would be, but like we're both bad with Graph Digger's Cage. Like the only other one would be like maybe Leyline of the Void, but your deck actually plays through Leyline of the Void like a champ.
I think the biggest thing would just be the familiar, right? So, oh my.
Yeah, the familiar. Your Unlucky Witnesses wouldn't trigger.
Yeah.
That's actually the biggest issue. You should have did that with this on the stack.
Yeah, I know.
That's probably the biggest difference in the matchup is specifically the your Unlucky Witnesses going from good to terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, sacrifice this on the stack.
Yep.
So this is where your deck, I think, starts to gain an edge. Is that these decks have started to play Claim the Firstborn again. Because Claim the Firstborn here was effectively just a 1-mana removal spell, and if I didn't have a Witch's Oven, it would have been much worse. Because if you take that, hit me with it, Deadly Dispute it, not only did you get to Claim the Firstborn, but you've also gotten like just countless other sets of value out of it. Well, got another one, so.
All right. I mean, I wish I could say I had another one.
Well, this is a matchup that you can keep your cards like Fatal Push in,
yeah.
but I don't. My deck can't. Because I have to take those out to make room for my my other answers to like things like your Witch's Ovens and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna make the disciplined choice of taking 2.
That's entirely fair.
I can kill it with Devil triggers, so like
yeah.
versus if I block and then you play a Devil of your own, then you sack that treasure and kill my Devil. It's like that I'm just like a million years behind.
I'm trying to think here. I am certainly in a situation. That's.
Well, I mean, you're the sacrifice deck playing underneath a Mayhem Devil, so I definitely whatever you were going. Okay, that mode makes sense. Interesting that you do that in my. I think I would have done that during your turn.
Yeah, that probably would have been better.
This is why. Deadly Dispute makes it so that you should do that during.
Gotcha. Yeah, I completely forgot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think. And then
surprisingly enough, as much as much of that card that I have been playing, I still forget that it exists from time to time. Hmm.
Well, I got another
Oh.
one, so.
Oh shoot.
Kill this guy.
Oh.
I mean, I'll deal a trigger to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think this is this is definitely a matchup that like, and so in these types of this is you should, from your standpoint, you should treat this basically the same way you treat a mirror match.
Okay.
So just being very conscientious of like specifically like Deadly Dispute, Witch's Oven, and Witch's Oven's always heads up, but like Deadly Dispute is a big one. Like from my side of things, I'm always going to play around. Like I'll always play around your Deadly Disputes when I can. Like this scenario here, I can't. I just need to do this now.
Yeah.
Before you have the like a window of time where it's like it stops being beneficial to me. Yep.
I mean, yeah, I take the one, but
You'll take another one from the Cauldron enters, but I think this is definitely a game that showcases why Mayhem Devil's good.
Yeah.
But that's always what these mirror matches are defined by, is how good Mayhem Devil is.
I think
in the matchup specifically. Well, if you have a removal spell that kills specifically Cauldron Familiar and not Mayhem Devil, this is the window of time to do it.
Yeah, unfortunately I don't, so...
Okay. That was a good pickup. Are you dead this turn? You might be.
Oh no.
Well, you're at 6, so...
Yep.
So this Goose was a good draw, because now I'll have an excess food on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Going up top.
I mean...
So yeah. I mean, you could force the issue, but I don't...
I mean, I'm forcing it.
Yeah.
Forcing it.
This is actually the reason why I don't like Unlicensed, because I didn't bring my hearses in against you.
Okay.
And this is like I would cite this as the specific reason why. All right, and then I'll just show it to you. I have a Deadly Dispute.
Oh, okay, yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this is definitely a matchup that's defined by who can stick a Mayhem Devil and keep a Mayhem Devil.
Yeah, for sure.
And I definitely I get why you'd bring in those hearses, but what you just saw there, especially, I think it's better against your deck than it is against the Jund deck, because the Jund deck has more incidental food tokens it makes. Or like for you to play through a hearse like that, you'd have to have like 2 Witches Ovens and like a 1/1 you don't care about.
Fair enough.
Where and I don't even like bringing in the hearse against you. Like, so I just don't have them in, but it's tricky. Definitely also, so you didn't see any of the answers to the second devil. You killed the first one. I feel like if I didn't have a second devil there, that game we'd be still playing it right now.
Potentially, yeah. This is fine.
I will also keep. Cool.
It's the Epicure.
Interesting. So no Deadly Disputes from you?
Trail of Crumbs.
Oh yeah. I'm doing slow grindy things, so.
You certainly are.
Yeah. Watch out, Mom. I'm chipping in. Alright, I have to play the Buseju, sadly, but I got a Mayhem Devil. Make you do something. Oh, wow.
True.
Didn't even cycle the blood token there?
No.
I mean, I would have done it on the stack, obviously, if you were going to do it, but
Yeah.
if you have excess Deadly Dispute, if you have a lot of copies of Deadly Dispute, I would get why. So, okay, well, that's the gruesome twosome that you could use to get the most value out of these Mayhem Devils of mine. Though I did draw a good one.
Uh-oh. A good one.
Now I got Witch's Oven into Mayhem Devil.
Ooh, alright.
So now you can't do the trick again, but you can still just point a claim the Firstborn, and it says,
yeah.
destroy target creature, opponent gains a food token. But like, you know what's crazy is that I've seen like in the occasional sideboard of that deck carry Zev's expertise.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because you can, like, cast the thing, and then, like, on turn 3, it's, like, very specifically, you can, like, take control of the thing, and then, like, play a Witch's Oven.
Okay, yeah.
Like, in, like, turns. But it also just grabs big things, too, for 3 mana, while allowing you to gain a mana swing.
I am fortunately in a situation where I do not have the removal spell.
So we're in another scenario like that, huh? Alright, well, I have a Vraska.
Oh, wow. Vraska.
Well, it's gonna start with this.
Alright.
If you have another Deadly Dispute, I mean, you're still gonna get...
I do. So.
Only drawback is this happens, but... If you have a Village Rites... Another Deadly Dispute. I mean, this one's a little trickier because now there's 2 Mayhem Devil triggers, but you do get to draw 4 cards.
Yeah, so...
By the way, Drabynoops, I want you to know that I've been playing a lot of Is It Phoenix and Pioneer tabletop lately, and the play that just happened reminds me of one of my favorite plays that I've done recently, which is where I cast Galvanic Iteration and then play a Treasure Cruise for 1 mana. And draw 6 cards, like... Those I don't know why, but all those things seemed eerily similar.
Okay.
Can't wait for those delve spells, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Though, in all likelihood, they'll end up being banned. Ooh, yeah, you could fire up, like the Den. Or the...
Yep.
Just deal with this Vraska. Though, if you have anything you wanted to cast, you should have done it first.
Fair.
So 3 at me and 1 at the Vraska. All makes sense. Alright. I think I might seal the deal with this next one. Ooh, kitty cat.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, my life total is getting super low, so, like, I'm definitely not in, like, a position where I can, like, easily just, like, continue the pace that we're playing. You don't have any food tokens, right?
I do not.
I think this is a little on the greedy side, but I think this is the right play.
Ooh.
This wins the game faster, and I think that's what I have to do here.
Yeah.
I'll sack this token. Kill this Cauldron Familiar.
I mean, might as well try it. I mean, I know I'm gonna take 2 here, but...
Well, I'm gonna kill the 1/1.
Oh, okay.
Mostly because I can. And realistically, 14 versus 15 isn't changing my clock. Alright, that's what I like to see. Lands. Alright, draw a card. Boom, big money. I don't plan on blocking a Hive of the Eye Tyrant here, so I'm going to attack. Plus, I think if your game plan is just to try and kill me with Hive of the Eye Tyrant, I think I win. I'm fairly confident I will win that race. Given the contents of the battlefield right now.
Yeah, given what's going on, I think you might be correct.
Well, that's a 2-turn clock for you. Like,
Yeah.
so it's not like unrealistic for me to think about that. Like,
No, for sure.
like I think sure. Actually, how many fatal pushes does this deck play? Because you just haven't seen a one. It feels like. No, it's full 4 in the main. 3 claims. Okay, you're gonna pad your life total here and tax the shit out of my hand.
Yes.
That's fair. I like that a lot. The Ob Nixilis is finally coming into its stride and is super exciting. Yep, it's a 1/1, and then this one will plus. I will discard the land you know about.
Okay.
I mean, you're getting to tick up in life totals, so. Ooh, and the fatal push. That's the brutal part. All right.
Yeah, though honestly, I should have done it before I did the devil. So.
I mean, I'll kill the Ob Nixilis first.
That's fair.
I kind of have to. Plus, I'm gonna have to start cracking food tokens to not be dead.
Not die. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we're getting. That's kind of the point we're at.
Still though, you are basically at a 2-turn clock right here. So. Yeah.
Now, I'm just essentially digging as deep as I can get right now. Honk?
Honk. Yeah, I'm looking here, and I just don't have an answer to Corvald. So if I can't,
Well, it feels like your answer is you just have to race it.
yeah.
And I'm just doing my best to murder you at this point.
I've gathered.
I'm trying to kill you this turn if possible. It's so far not working out that way. I think I'm gonna be 1 damage short of killing you.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, cast the Witch's Oven.
Yep. I actually think here, it's given the exact makeup of the board, I'm just gonna. I could go at your life total, but I don't think you being given the deck you're playing.
You could have absolutely killed me.
Oh yeah, look at me. I'm the pro player here. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, forgot he has an attack trigger. Chat. Fun fact. Read your cards.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah, I'll go to cleanup and discard 3 cards now. My cleanup step that it should have never happened.
That's rough.
Yeah, you don't really have any. I mean, you got Noxious Grasps in your board, but
yeah.
Which I think you bring in here.
I probably should have.
Yeah. I think,
because the thing is, I think this is more down to, my lack of, knowledge.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's definitely down to my lack of knowledge, but the whole thing is.
In all fairness, I should have given you a deck list that I was playing, but in your defense, Drabynoops.
I appreciate it.
Which I will for the next match and future matches, because I would rather you make all of the best possible decisions.
So that would be 3. That. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Okay,
let's see if my misplay costs me the game.
That would be interesting, would it not?
That is a realistic part of playing.
Yeah.
Sometimes your opponents just don't see it right away, and when they do see it, it's too late.
This is
okay. Well, it's kill me this turn or die.
Yeah. So I mean, I've got to do everything in my power to do that. I mean, there's no real good target. It'll just.
Would it be better to
Haha.
animate Hive of the Eye Tyrant? I'm sorry, Den of the Bugbear. Doesn't that do more damage?
You can just block the den.
Oh, that's true. Well, here I blocked the devil, I
I
suppose.
suppose, and you would have taken 2 as opposed to. Well,
No,
no,
yeah, no. You're correct. This does 1 more point of damage than the den would have.
Okay.
Okay.
So. Wait, actually, it's 4 or greater. I would need 2. Okay, well, I'm not gonna get a 4 or greater. So. Yeah. There. Great. I want the Cauldron Familiar. Then I would make. I think there's exactly 1 draw here that could potentially. And that's a huge maybe.
Oh, interesting. We're bringing that back.
Yeah. Though I can't help but wonder if I should have just sacrificed the food token.
Well, I think what it is like, what is the realistic chance that I can sacrifice? Well, I got 2 permanents I can sacrifice face up, right?
Yeah, so that's it.
Well, it doesn't help that I had this too. But,
yeah, I know that doesn't help.
So like here I'll play this.
So I drew those 2 cards. Do you want to know what the literal next card was?
What was it?
Mayhem Devil.
That would have been brutal.
Rip. Okay.
Yep, we'll go straight at you.
It's fair enough. I know enough about Jund Food to know that you would have Corval. I should have brought those in. So.
Yeah, it's also one of those things where it's like it only kills Corval.
Yeah.
So like, I can understand why somebody, but when it's one of those scenarios where it's your only way to kill Corval.
Yeah.
Because like one of the things that you definitely don't have that say like something like I would have kind of like at least the mentality of is I'm coming from like I test to play at like the pro level. So like when I'm looking at my deck, like I'm thinking how am I gonna sideboard this like ahead of time. Like I go into playing my deck with that plan in mind, to a degree. Also, it doesn't help that I've played years of Jund Food at this point, albeit in historic, but I think it pretty well crosses over here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll play now we're gonna play against the most popular deck, which I actually think you have a better matchup against, believe it or not.
Interesting.
This is a matchup that I would actually. I do personally put Rakdos ahead of Jund, at least nowadays. In that matchup, I just think it really comes down to tight gameplay. Like any food mirror comes down to it's who has the more reps in the matchup and knows how to value each thing. All right.
I'm surprisingly okay with this.
I'm gonna keep mine. Mine could go either way, but if I'm keeping in the dark against a Giganta, this is kind of the stuff I want. Boom, fancy Hive of the Eye Tyrant.
Ooh. Thoughtseize.
Oh, that's a bag of dicks. It's definitely Witch's Oven.
I mean,
there's one card that's super good in this matchup that I have to bank on here. Alright, I'm playing Haunted Ridge tapped and Thoughtseize again. Alright, well, I'm definitely not taking the Croxus, so please don't sacrifice the blood tokens. Not until the end step, at least. Now, you should have did it in the end step. But,
yeah, I should have.
Well, now you should do it sorcery speed, because if you draw a land, you want to play it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Though I will tell you, before you make any future decisions, let me,
Sure. Oh, right.
I meant to send you the deck list here.
Haha, witness.
Where is my exact deck list? Can't export it, but I did. There we are. So here, I'll send it to you in the Discord chat.
Sure.
That is my exact deck list that I'm playing. Alright,
Okay.
so you've got that stuff. Alright, this is the one card that I have to hope can, like, keep me in this game.
Gotcha.
It's a good one in the matchup, but it's, you know, you realistically only have so many cards that are going to the graveyard. I was actually listening really funnily enough to Jerry Thompson talk a lot about Explorer in their last podcast episode, the Arena Deck Lists podcast, which I highly recommend to anybody looking to just enjoy conversations about Magic. And I share this opinion as well. I think Castle Lochthwain is a bad card right now in Explorer.
Oh, really?
I think it's really good in Pioneer Rakdos decks. But the distinct lack of Urborg makes that clause of entering the battlefield tapped a big deal, especially in your deck.
Yeah,
I think it's a bigger pronounced problem where, like, we're both on 4 Blood Crypts, but I'm on 3 Swamps and then 2 Fabled Passages where you're not on that. But yeah, and like this deck isn't even playing Castle Lochthwain, like the one I'm on. And for all of those stated reasons. And I will ship it.
I need to draw cards.
I don't blame you. You got double Thoughtseize here on the play.
Yeah.
And you don't, like, your pressure. Oh, well. At least it makes the decision easy. Well, I got another one, and they do come in on the backside.
That's
Graveyard Trespasser was a card that felt really awkward on paper. Like, as I was getting into Pioneer and Explorer, but I've become a believer.
Ward, discard a card. Sweet.
Yeah, really good with Thoughtseize.
Sweet baby Jesus. Okay.
This card is exclusively why the card Void Ren sees play in Pioneer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's explicitly because of how strong this ward ability can be in a Thoughtseize specific deck.
Yeah. Okay, so.
I mean, you are stabilizing steadily, though. Like, that's not nothing. And
I flipped him over.
Yeah, that's what's important, because now you can triple block if I decide to attack, which I still think it's correct for me to. Ooh, actually, this draw. All right. Yeah, we're playing the Glory Banger. Exert. I would love to just be so cool if I could layer this differently, but, you know.
Yeah.
Here, I think, since I can't guarantee exile this Cauldron Familiar, I'm going to kill an Epic here. Yeah, Glorybringer is... by the way, so if you look at this deck list that I sent you, this is what's kind of becoming popular. You notice a lot of even the interactive spells, super proactive. Or, like, and the only one that isn't is, like, Abrade, but that's specifically because it can, like, kill artifacts.
I am looking at my hand right now, and I am looking at the board, and I am making a decision.
Hey, knowing when it's time to end the game, to say, let's, you know, mission aborted, let's all go home, like...
Yeah.
Like, that, I think that is a, that is a skill that doesn't get emphasized enough.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Okay.
Wow, I like the deck list. I like this deck list you sent me, like, a lot.
Yeah, I would highly recommend this. So, I didn't play in the play-in event, obviously. Because I was busy doing other things, but, if I was playing in like a competitive REL event for this format, I would be playing this deck, like 100%.
Yeah, I like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what this deck is doing. Well, and it's not because I'm a Rakdos stan, to clarify for the chat at home. It is very much because I do actually believe these Rakdos decks are, like, keeping the format, like, in check. Because, like, to be honest, like, it used to be that Parhelion was, like, the best thing you could be doing, and to be perfectly honest, when stuff like that is number one, like, games can become very unfun to play very quickly.
Alright, well, let's see what happens.
Yeah, you got a mulligan conservatively here against the Thoughtseize deck. Well, you're leading out of duress, though, and you got a lot of options. Really? That's the take for you? Okay. Yeah. Eye of the Eye Tyrant. I like the way these lands look on Arena, but I hate them in paper.
Oh yeah, no,
Where it's just like the artwork with the name. Then
yeah, I have the Evolving Wilds, and I kind of have the same feeling.
I have them all now. They were on sale the other day, so
Oh, nice.
I decided to splurge.
I'm just gonna cast a I'm just gonna cast a Death Shadow if that's.
No, I don't. You got to keep in mind, like, though I can pressure your life total, it's not like I'm an aggro deck. Like,
Yeah.
you can afford, especially in these scenarios. If you want my opinion, yeah, it's Fable the Mirror Breaker.
Yeah, no,
it's the glue card.
Yeah, it's the highest value.
Well, I mean, I would argue Chandra is higher value, but if you take a Chandra, since I have a second one, like, I'm only gonna deploy one of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I know 3 of your cards. Yikes. Actually, yeah.
That's fair. I think that's a reasonable choice. Alright. I'm gonna play this guy. I am going to go to my own graveyard. So I want you to know the decision I just made tells you that I value my life total more than the Croxes I put in my sideboard.
Yeah.
Which, to clarify, I am not the Croxa deck here. You are on the play. On the draw, it's a little different. Like, where, we got one of us is gonna have, whoever's on the draw is gonna have more cards, and they're better insulated against Thoughtseizes and whatnot.
This is actually right here.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I actually think you would attack first and do this in combat, but after I blocked whichever one I blocked, which I would block Voltaire and Epicure, but, like, still, I think that you could value the chip damage here, especially knowing that I'm going to be gaining at least 1 life on my turn, more than likely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I mean, you know about these Chandras, so I'm not even going to hide the fact that I have them.
Fair enough.
Zippity zap. You got a Village Rites?
Unfortunately, I do not.
Fatal Push, though. Yeah, that's the other thing is, for you have, oddly enough, Graveyard Trespasser is both the reason why you do and don't want Croxa.
Yeah.
Because being able to discard a Croxa to this ability is really strong, but having a Croxa come down before, that's why when I play this type of matchup with your deck, I keep at least some of my Croxas in, and then I keep them in my hand for as long as possible until a Graveyard Trespasser comes down, and then I use the Trespasser to bin my Croxa for later. I'll decline.
Yeah, I'm the one that needs to pad my total right now.
It's true. I will plus.
This current moment. Ooh, Fatal Push.
Fatal Push was very specifically good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's gonna be probably one at me here.
Yeah. I would consider that the intelligent play.
Kill the token. So this is a good rule for our viewers at home. Generally, you should just kill the token first. Because if he does have, say another Omnic, so like say there's a different scenario, shocking one of these, I would kill the token always.
Yeah.
So then the event, say you have another Obnixless in your hand, like, I've effectively made it weaker. Thoughtseize.
Lo and behold.
Well, I'll actually take your Deadly Dispute here. But
Yeah, no, that is probably much better in this situation.
I'm looking at your deck list, and yeah, there's definitely a tough matchup. I feel like your game 1 is really good, but like Graveyard Trespasser is such a beating against you.
Mm-hmm.
I think having that might be what's I imagine, because like the Rakdos Sacrifice deck is definitely not considered a tier 1 deck. It's considered the easiest deck to get your hands on.
Yeah.
Which means that's what makes it so popular. And as we've talked about probably several times now in the Budget Battle series, like looking at your deck, outside of the fact that most of your lands are rares, like not a lot of rares going on for you. Like out of your non-land cards, Ob Nixilis is the only, and Fable of the Mirrorbreaker are your only like non-commons. So it's 8 cards out of the 42 non-land cards in your deck. So when we start putting things in like that perspective, I'm gonna decline right now.
Oh, right, I didn't actually cast a spell.
Very important distinction.
Rip.
Kill this guy. Luckily, you only had 1 creature in your graveyard anyway, but I am gonna make future Croxes harder to play and escape right away. Alright, well, I got this land and this Planeswalker. I should have played that on red, but alright. Clang to Dust. Alright, well, now you know about it, so. I brought it in. Did not bring in the hearse, though. I don't think the hearse is correct. Alright. So luckily you have a scenario where you can chip in for 1 and get down the double Ob Nixilis, make a double 1+ again.
Yeah.
So, sadly, I don't think you're pulling ahead, you're just, like, keeping pace, but you're still pressuring my life total thoroughly while padding your own. Could also go for, like, Animate the Den, kill the Chandra, wouldn't be bad here either.
Yeah, but
or even just pile on me for 5, but I think getting that Ob Nixilis down is really good.
Yeah, no,
Because, like, if I'm going to kill an Ob Nixilis, I'm going to have to, like, minus this Chandra on the 1/1, take 1 again. Alright, I'll discard my 3rd Chandra. Ooh, Hive of the Eye Tyrant's actually a little. And he buys the Gigantha. It's pretty strong. Well, that was a good draw. Make mana. Play Glory Banger.
Uh-oh. Glory Bringer.
Oh, I misplayed actually, but I could have Thoughtseized you first to gain some life.
Fair enough.
I would have drained you for 1 additional point.
Yeah.
Well, luckily here I get to clean up the battlefield, but the Glorybringer's tapped. But I have a Chandra on 6. Yeah, this mid-range deck is brutal.
I mean, if I had shut the Chandra, it would have brought it down to 5.
I don't think you played. I'm gonna be honest. I think this wasn't like you played wrong. This is that my deck has just slowly overwhelmed.
Yeah.
What you've had available.
No cards in hand.
Yeah, I'm Spirit Fingers over here. I think Graveyard Trespasser just being such a beating in this matchup is what did this.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no, you're correct to attack me. I'm at a virtual 4 right now because you got 1 creature in your graveyard, and you're at virtually 5. So I think setting yourself up with whatever means possible to try and kill me here is correct. I think I'm gonna plus this no matter what, right? Alright, deals 2. Play a Den. Play attack. I think it's better to not attack at all, actually. Because I get to flip this into the 4/4, and I have Hive now to double block. So basically, if you attack with this, now I can, trade Hive for Hive. But this is really bad if you have Thoughtseize. That's also really bad. That's basically the worst case scenario, is this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, first one's free. Did he draw? Ooh, okay. Well, in response, I'm gonna have to. Gain 3 life.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't ping you for 2.
But, I'm virtually still at 3, so, I have to play like I'm still at 3. Because now you have no creatures in the graveyard. Actually, never mind. I cheated you, Drabynoops. I have a Chandra emblem now.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I guess I'll deal 5 to your face. How many cards do I got in here? Not enough to escape. Plus, deal damage. I'll exert an attack. Trigger. This one. That one. Yeah.
Man, I should play more Explorer. Yeah. Blocking doesn't change anything.
No, you're taking 4 in the air. That was brutal, Drabynoops. That was a brutal showing. I think I just made a believer out of the Rakdos deck.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're gonna probably be playing this one a little bit.
I might be, yeah.
I think you'll like it. I think it's right up your alley. Still has a lot of the themes that you like, but is very interactive and very powerful. All right, time for the wild card matchup.
Ooh, all right.
So you picked deck number 2, right?
I did.
Ooh, wrong challenge type.
Ooh.
What? Oh. Explorer tournament match.
All right.
So this last deck, this is a deck that was, again, recently featured in the Explorer Deep Dive by Martin Yuza, Pro Tour Hall of Famer Martin Yuza. It features, I believe, a companion of Yorion the Sky Noodle.
Oh, so we know it's going to be fun.
Actually, you know what? I just realized there's a land cycle that I actually wanted to get your opinion on when we were talking about legendary lands. Should the Triomes have been legendary? Do you think that would have fixed what was wrong with them?
I feel like the Triomes, as far as Ixalan goes, represent environments as opposed to specific locations.
Unlike the New Capenna ones.
Which represent locations, yes.
Yes. Yeah, so, I think it would have been the perfect opportunity to use Legendary as a drawback. Like, I think the overall design of the land, being this 3 basic land type land, I feel like that in of itself being legendary, and then designing what location it is and all that after around that. I think from a design standpoint, these would have been better served as legendary.
Yeah, no, and they already have cycling, so the drawback of being legendary is built in.
Exactly. There's also that, yeah, because that means even if you wanted to play multiple copies, you could just cycle the second one. Yeah. Right? So, I feel like it would have definitely, because it wouldn't change how they function in fetch land decks, where they only get played as a one-of, right? Wouldn't have changed their functionality in Commander. It feels like the only reason they weren't legendary is that they have never made the dual land, quotes, duals land cycle, legendary before. So it feels like they weren't legendary for the sake of, tradition.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm picking up what you're putting down here, Drabynoops, but I got Locus of the Royal.
Omnath.
Oh yeah, this is 4-color elementals. So
Well,
this is the kind of deck your deck is supposed to be preying on. To be perfectly
it's
honest with you. All
well,
right.
the only thing preying on me right now are these 3 Omnixilas in my hand.
All right, make this big. Make it bigger.
Wow.
Make it bigger. All right, I've got blue, so I got plenty of green. Could use another red mana, I guess. Honestly, I don't know if that was correct or not, but yeah, I feel like one of the bigger weaknesses of that deck is the low land count's gonna punish you. Like it's 18 lands in that deck, which is a problem. Oh, I'm so sorry, Drabynoops. You should already know what I'm playing. Do you know why? Because I should have sent my deck list to you again.
Don't worry about it.
No, I'm gonna pull it up here because I have it up. Okay. Again, this is the form I want. We're piloting this. This is not the final form of what this content's going to look like, but all right. I mean, I'm just not even gonna kid anybody. I'm just gonna play Kenrith. Does it give my guys trample? It does.
It does.
Very relevant here.
Yeah, I can't even cheat my way out with the cat.
Hey, it's fair because it gave your guys trample and haste too.
Oh, it's true.
Okay, so this is the big ramp deck went over the top of the low to the ground aggro deck.
Yeah, I'm gonna swing at this cat. Why not?
Yeah, if you're attacking, you bring it back.
Yeah.
Kitty cat, get aggressive.
Let's go. Okay. All right. I'm not winning here. All right. I just want to be clear. I just want to make sure that I do this because there we go. Okay. All right.
Okay. Make the 2 food tokens, baby.
Hey.
Value. Over the top value.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you got my deck list. You can reference it now.
Yeah. I like the one-ofs of just these haymakers.
I mean, it makes sense, though, with, like, Genesis Ultimatum and Escape to the Wilds, as well as just, like, the Risen Reef, like, Elementals draw package. It all kind of seems like it fits, but, like, this, I struggle when it comes, like, I can't build these 4-color decks very well, admittedly. Like, I've really, really struggled trying to put some of these decks together in the past, but it's just, like, you know, I look at this, and I'm just like, this all seems really good, like... I guess, like, I honestly, I don't know, but this, look at the top 5.
This is interesting.
Okay, so this is, so I can trim on copies of this, and probably a copy or 2 of this. It's where chat can watch me just absolutely destroy my own deck. Yeah, so this was featured in the recent deep dive on Channel Fireball by Martin Yuza. But as an interesting wild card choice, the other wild card choice, by the way, was the Transmogrify Titan of Industry deck. I had that put together as the other one, because that's kind of an up-and-comer, kind of a parallel to the fight rigging decks we've been seeing as well. Where they kind of gave up on the what the fight rigging decks were more specifically doing to focus on the just the Titan itself.
Yeah.
Which I think is correct. It feels like the Great Henge was like the big thing to be doing with that wasn't like the big dumb creature. But ultimately, do have to give up stuff, because as good as Isika's Chariot and other things are, I feel like you could It's either Leaf
Oh,
Can or Escape to the
I
Wilds.
I like Ashaya. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't look at the deck list?
The deck list isn't in an order that my brain can understand, so I missed
Oh, you
some
need.
stuff.
Okay, I should send you pictures from that one. That might be better visuals. Yeah, it was like Leaf Can or Escape.
Yeah.
Alright, well, you get to play with perfect information. Seems strong. This would be a good turn for an Ob Nixilis.
It sure is.
Yeah. No, I think what Ob Nixilis is really good at in these decks, and what I really enjoy, is how good it is against control.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I've been seeing, yeah, I have to decline here. Okay, and this one I'll discard the second copy of Ashaya, too. Ooh, that's a good one. Play a Dryad.
Oh, that's,
Play a Passage.
Yeah, real good. That's, yeah.
Dryad and Ashaya are a really strong combo together. Ooh, this is an easy escape, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, you take the thing that buys me back into this game. Didn't make a devil. I'm not sure if you make a devil there, actually. I think I actually value just plussing twice. Because, like, I'm getting to that point where I'm going to have to, like, start declining. Just for,
yeah,
like...
no, and come to think of it, based on everything I have for resources.
Because, like, this Omnath only deals one. Like, it's not...
Yeah.
It's killing this 1/1 now. And then, like, I get to attack this one. So in the other world, it would be like, I just take 3 loyalty. I get to kill this token. Where here, I guess, I mean, maybe that's not as bad, but, like, is you still dealt 1 to me? I don't know, I'm a little torn. I think there's merits to both. Okay, well, you have a Fatal Push, too, so that's just even better.
Yep.
Alright, well, I'll pass.
Okay, so I guess I will.
You got all the heads-up info in the world here.
Indeed I do.
I'm gonna decline. Which really sucks, but...
Okay.
Interesting. Tapped off the red for that. Yep. I think, yeah, this is exactly the game plan you want to be executing, I think.
Yeah, I had the 2 fatal pushes, so the idea is I wanted a creature that I could use as sacrifice fodder. I didn't expect you to kill it, so the plan went a little slower.
Only thing it killed, right? So
yeah.
No, deal damage to this token. Your life total's so high that I can't even, like... Yeah, I'm just gotta keep declining. How low does it go, my life total? Alright, now you get to see the Wombo combo.
The Wombo combo?
Boom. All my creatures trigger this Omnath.
Yeah, that's true.
I get to kill this one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get to be sad and palm this last card that's a land. So that I can discard it and not be, like, immediately dead.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I think you're in this yet. Like, this is definitely going to be a scrap for the next, like, 2 turns. But this is where your deck's supposed to shine. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. Alright, well, if you have a K, you get to win.
I don't, unfortunately. So
right, well, I shouldn't have taken 2 there, but sometimes I'm dumb, so... Oh, that's right. This checks if I draw cards and whatnot when I have...
yeah.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, this is real good. That's another Wombo combo with Ashaya. Up your land count.
Wombo combo. Wombo combo. Boom. Keep this one. Triggers. A million triggers. Oh, you're dead. Wow, that's insane.
What?
Wow. I haven't played this deck before, but that's nuts. And I just took you from 18 to 0.
Oh, that.
From
Yeah,
what
no, I
looked
was not.
like you'd have at least one more turn
I was
to
not expecting that.
to
Okay.
oh my wa Shindeyu. Oofta. That was not a good showing for Rakdos Sacrifice.
No, but I did get a Halo fountain out of it, so you know.
It's all losses. Let's be totally honest, but
No, that's one more mythic that I don't have to open in a pack, right?
I mean, yes, that is a fact.
Yeah.
But which I guess technically improves the quality of packs because that card's bad.
Yeah.
I suppose that card will be worth something IRL because it says it's a white artifact that untaps your commander.
Yeah, and just creatures in general. There's a lot of token strategies in white, so.
Well, I honestly think it's that first mode will be the only ever. Like maybe that second mode's relevant, but like that's like the reason it gets like expensive is because it has some broken combo where you get to untap something a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think there's other cards that do the same thing, but well, Drabynoops, that was a 0-3 sweep.
Yeah, no, that's
I don't think I like that deck as it is.
A lot of that did have to do with my decisions, both sideboarding and play decisions.
So I want to share my screen with you.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a fair. I don't think I did the deck justice per se, but
so I want to show you something. So
sure.
What I found interesting about the deck you were playing is I'm gonna pull this up. This is the Rakdos deck that I've been playing. Do you notice a distinct difference? 22 lands. I feel like that deck is playing less lands than it should be.
Okay,
like,
yeah.
I feel like you're playing 8 3-drops.
Oh my god, 18 lands? Jesus.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I kept looking at your deck list. Because, like, essentially, this deck is the same as mine, except he cut 4 lands for 4 Fable of the Mirror. So your deck's actually playing 12 3-drops on 18 lands. I could see 20 lands. Like a world where 20 lands.
is usually my default for this deck.
Yeah, so I have a strong feeling that was part of the problem. Was that you were struggling at multiple points there to, like, hit your 3rd land drop on time. Even when you were drawing extra cards, and I have a strong feeling it was because of that. So I have a feeling that if we were to redo this with, no offense to Michael Bonda, with a better fleshed out deck list, because this is the deck I've been jamming when I want to play Sacrifice, and I have I'm like 12-0 with it, like since I've changed to this exact list, and because I'm always drawing enough lands, like especially because your deck's like playing like Castle Lochthwain on 18 lands with 6 swamps. Like my deck's also on 6 swamps, but it's just like, you know, I'm still playing just more lands in general. So like and I'm like when you're playing like I can play Haunted Ridge. Your deck very much can't. Like which is a really good turn 3 land in the deck. But I definitely feel like that's part of the problem you were running into. Is I think Fable of the Mirrorbreaker is strong, but I feel like jamming it, cutting 4 lands forward is not correct. Ultimately, because that definitely led to a lot of really bad hands.
Yeah, I did feel the inconsistencies there. So
yeah, then the other difference was that he was playing 4 fatal pushes and only 3 unlucky witnesses, where my list is actually in the opposite direction. But yeah, I feel like if I'll shoot you this deck list too, because if you want to play this in Explorer, I highly recommend going for something closer to what I've got here. But So how are you feeling though about doing this as a series of some kind?
I I do like this, primarily because it'll give me a chance to play more, um,
Hmm.
explore than I otherwise may have. I mean, once I actually, now that I actually have Explorer decks, the only ones I had were budget battle ones, and I've been playing them, but it is
It's
the
not the same.
equivalent of a. It is no, it's not the same. It's the equivalent of a meme.
Yeah,
Um,
basically, it has its place, and some of those ideas and concepts may evolve into very real decks. Um, but at the same time, because it's the whole idea of the budget battle is it's forcing us to be creative and
yeah,
find ways to play decks that or utilize cards to their fullest. Because
hmm
we're strained on how many rares and mythics we can play, and that may breed innovation, and that may breed realistic decks that can be upgraded. But
yeah,
playing like actual full power explorer, can also show off like a little bit more of like what we're actually looking at. Plus, if you end up ever at any point wanting to actually play some serious explorer on arena,
yeah,
like the play-in event is a perfect example. Or now you'll be prepared, or at least more prepared to do that, because I think that'll also help both of us. Because I do plan on trying to play in more of those qualifier events
hmm
as the future rolls on here for arena, and I think it'd be good for me too. So, but
yeah, absolutely.
I think we can wrap it up there and call it a day. Any
Sure.
closing thoughts that you had, Drabynoops?
Uh, I mean, I like our trial, what we're doing here. I really love the podcast discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
it
think
was
we
also
could do
very,
a follow up and focus more on some design topics that we didn't get too deep into.
yeah. And then not only that, we were also able to keep it concise. I know a lot of times
Ramble.
we ramble,
We
but
get
we
really
we did not.
passionate.
We there was a little bit of ramble, but not like what
We,
I'm
we kept it within our because we always try to keep things to about 90 minutes, which we
yeah,
did a pretty good job of this time.
absolutely,
All right. Well, I appreciate your time tonight, Drabynoops.
definitely.
And I appreciate you all for watching. If you want to stay up to date with our content, go ahead and hit that follow button if you're here on Twitch, or that subscribe button if you're there on YouTube, and don't forget to drop a like. And of course, if you want to follow us when we're not making content, you can find us on Twitter. I'm at SaltiestGaijin, my good friend at Drabynoops, everywhere where they want you to find him.
Yeah.
Of course, we appreciate you all for watching. We'll see you again soon.